Who's playing in the Super Bowl? It's the Chiefs. It's the Eagles. Congrats if those are one of your two teams, and we are going to actually be at the game. So I'm going to be really happy to go through and go ahead, look at these player props, do a little preview. Not going to lie, a little surprised to see that the Eagles are favored by 2 points, or at least I initially was until we dove a little deeper into it. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But before we get into anything, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football, of course. And if you want to check out any of these player props, Underdog already has the Super Bowl props out. Of course, these will be updating as more people go through and make bets on them. You can find the link in the description of this video. You can find it in the comment section. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. And on top of it, you're going to be getting a free bet this week on Underdog. We don't know if that's yet going to be the Patrick Mahomes plus minus half a passing yard, Jalen Hurts plus minus half a passing yard, Kelsey plus minus half a receiving yard. It will be a free bet, and I'm very excited to be able to get you all that. So let's go through it. And before we talk about my favorite player prop, which I'm sure you've already seen here, I want to first address the spread. Plus 2 points for the Chiefs here. Now, of course, I would love to tell you, okay, I am an expert when it comes to picking NFL spreads. I'm taking the Chiefs +2, blah, blah, blah. In reality, Las Vegas sportsbooks, the sportsbooks putting out these lines, they know more than we do, okay? They definitely are on their game. I think they have every piece of data to look at, and I think it will be very difficult to go through and try to make a profitable bet on either the spread or the total of this game. We're more so going to be looking at these lines to try to have an idea of how this game's going to play out. For the player props we're going to be looking at, because I'm confident in saying that we can go out there, we can have some success with player props, and the over-under of this game is actually going to be 50 to 49.5. I believe it actually initially opened up at 50 flat for most sports books, and then moved down at some of them to 49.5. Regardless, we have an idea of how this game should be scored out. And I think this is probably, in my mind, the correct way to go about this. Because if we look at how hot the Philadelphia Eagles have been as of late, you're going through and looking at a team that has been on a tear. Now, of course, we can look at the fact that they're winning these games, but not only are they winning them, they're not even close. Now, we had a little stretch of games in this mix where Jalen Hurts didn't play. Jalen Hurts was limited, where we really just need to be looking at what we had with the final 2 games here in the postseason, not what we had at the beginning of the regular season. We know that the Eagles have only lost 3 games this entire year, but regardless, Philadelphia, the past 2 weeks, they have stomped these teams. They have won by a combined about 60 points between the Giants and the 49ers. It's obnoxious, and it's why the spread on this game is going to be 2 points favoring Philadelphia. Now, I do want to be fair in saying, okay, well, what happened in those 2 playoff games the Eagles played in? Well, they went up against the New York Giants, who I would make an argument that in the divisional round, there is no team easier to play than the New York Giants, even if Brian Daboll had a phenomenal year 1. Come on, it was the Giants. They were just playing above their heads the entire season. And then they played the 49ers with their 4th string quarterback, who then got injured, and Christian McCaffrey had to step in. So while the Eagles have averaged winning about 30 points per game over the past 2, it's, in my mind, while impressive, not everything. If we're going to be looking at the Chiefs, keep in mind, beginning of the season here, don't read too much into that. But if we're going to be looking at over the past 2 weeks, they played close games with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals. Keep in mind, in that Jags game, Patrick Mahomes ended up injuring his ankle. Now, yes, he was able to go back in the second half. And yes, Patrick Mahomes was able to win the Jacksonville Jaguars that contest. But at the end of the day, still very impressive that that ever happened. And then against the Cincinnati Bengals, Mahomes looked close to 100%. But regardless of what you think of the officiating, the Kansas City Chiefs won that Cincinnati Bengals game, who I would make an argument, they were a significantly tougher opponent than the 49ers, who had Christian McCaffrey under center. Now, keep in mind, you are not going to get this Philadelphia Eagles game. You're not going to get this Super Bowl game played until February 12th. So we know for a damn fact, Patrick Mahomes is going to be very, very close to 100% with the health of his ankle. I don't think you have to worry about the ankle sprain at all for the Super Bowl. And that will be a very exciting thing, of course. Now, what I'm going to be looking at in particular, and I'm sure you've already seen this more times than not, but this A.J. Brown line at 72.5 receiving yards. Now, if you're going to be looking at A.J. Brown at 72.5 receiving yards, there have been a lot of games this year where he's not been able to get to that mark, which, I mean, usually you would say, okay, well, if we're going to be betting a player prop here, we want some confidence that he will be able to get there. But we have to remember, the Philadelphia Eagles in a lot of these games have blown teams out, have just been running circles around their opponent where they haven't had to throw the ball in the second half, where they're going through and running it a little bit with Miles Sanders, a little bit with Kenneth Gainwell, a lot of bit with Jalen Hurts, and just running out the clock in the second half where we already looked at the spread. We already saw the fact that it's supposed to be a 2-point game. It is going to be a very close contest. And if we look at A.J. Brown in close contest so far this season, like we said, I mean, the past 2 weeks, blowouts. Well, yeah, 22 receiving yards, 28 receiving yards over the past 2 weeks. I think it's very difficult to look at those 2 weeks and read too much into them, knowing that those games were not competitive in the slightest. And even in those games that weren't competitive, he's still averaging 7 targets a contest. But if we go through and if we look at what you had the regular season and look at games that were close, let's look at games that, I mean, were minimum 10 points or closer. The Giants, he gets there 95 receiving yards. The Saints, he gets there 97 receiving yards. Dallas, 103. Chicago, 181. That Giants game on December 11th, it wasn't a close game. We ignore it. Tennessee, not a close game, and we ignore it. Green Bay, he doesn't get there in a close contest. Indianapolis, he doesn't. Washington was, well, I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, if we go through and look at this, a lot of these games where A.J. Brown is not getting to 76.5 receiving yards, you can see the primary reason for it is it's just not a competitive contest. The Eagles are going through and running laps around their opponents, which they should not be able to do against the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the matchup. I like A.J. Brown, the player overall. I think that this game could be a little higher scoring than Vegas is initially projecting at 50 points total. But please, before we end this live stream, everybody in the chat, I see we have a lot of regulars out here. Thank you all so much for coming. Let me know out of all these player props that we initially have. Of course, Underdog is going to continue to put out more and more as we get closer to the game. What is your favorite line here? Like I said, you already know mine, A.J. Brown, more than 72.5 receiving yards. But what is going to be your favorite line? As Miles Sanders, 53.5. Hurts, I mean, with Jalen Hurts, 241.5 passing yards seems low. But if you pull up his game log, and most weeks it doesn't get there. Very similar to what we're looking at with the A.J. Brown situation, though, and that they just don't have to throw the ball in the second half most spots. But Garvey says, 2 weeks rest should help their wide receiver room. Gavin says he likes the Kelce line. Let's see what that Kelce line is going to be sitting at. So 78.5 receiving yards. I mean, God, you would assume that they are going to lean on Kelce heavily, but that is pretty damn high. I think I'd rather have A.J. Brown at 72.5 compared to Kelce at 78.5. I understand why you'd rather have Kelce, though. But I think that should be it. We'll be giving an update as we get later on in the week. We have some more things to look at here. But thank you again. As always, I truly do appreciate you. I really hope that you have a great day, a great week. And if you want to check out any of these player props, link in the live chat, description, comment section, promo code FLOCK, 100% a positive match. And you're going to get a free bet on Underdog later this week. But thank you again. I appreciate you and hope you have a great day.